For trains, the track is the core of what makes them so efficient at transportation, and the core of most of the challenges one faces trying to operate them. The track allows trains to travel with a minimal amount of friction and gives them the ability to haul heavy loads with relative ease, but also ensures that two trains on the same track will be steered directly into each other. Naturally, sidings and secondary tracks were created to alleviate most of these problems. Without significant investment, however, the track infrastructure is a static environment in which a very dynamic industry must operate. A siding may have been built for trains of one length, but what happens when something longer comes along? That is where train crews get creative. Most railroads with single-track main lines have passing sidings scattered all along the line. If two trains are running opposed, one pulls into the hole and waits for the other to pass on the adjacent track before continuing on. It's about as simple as it gets. What happens if one train is too long, or two trains are being shoehorned into the siding and can't fit? This is where the saw-by move comes into play. If the shorter train arrives first, then the longer one runs right by. If the longer train arrives first, though, the longer train pulls as far into the siding as possible and waits for the shorter train. Once the shorter train arrives, it pulls into the open track and waits. The longer train moves ahead to open up the other end of the siding, and both trains continue on. This was the intended plan on the night of the famous Casey Jones wreck. Two freight trains at the siding in Vaughn, Mississippi were too long to fit when combined. A caboose and two freight cars were sticking out onto the main line in the path of the oncoming passenger train as the freight crews were trying to sort out a brake problem so they could move the trains into the clear. A few minutes later, Casey's train came flying out of the haze. Now, what if both trains are too long for the siding? This is a situation that is still very workable, just slightly time-consuming. At a glance, it looks physically impossible. One great thing about trains, however, is that they can be broken up into smaller pieces, put back together, and sent on their way. Try doing that with an Airbus. The solution is called a double saw-by, and it works like this. One train pulls into the siding and waits. The other stops a little ways from the siding and drops the back half of its train, then pulls into the siding where it now fits. The first train then pulls forward to clear the far end of the siding and couple onto the other half of the second train. The second train leaves the siding and goes a mile or so down the line, or however far it needs to go to be clear of the first train. The first train reverses the rear half of the second train into the siding, then backs out of the siding and continues on its way. The second train backs into the siding, couples onto its rear half, and carries on. And that's a double saw-by. The idea scares a lot of operators when they first hear of it, but it's not too bad. But wait a minute, you may ask. What if both trains are so long that even cut in half they won't fit in the siding? Well, in that case, you break one of the trains down into sections that will fit and repeat the maneuver until you have the whole train through. However, getting into that situation would require some extraordinary circumstances. A railroad would lose a great deal of time having to do it on the daily and would likely spend the money to expand the sidings if any sort of double, triple, or quadruple saw-by started happening regularly. I once read about a quintuple saw-by on the Rio Grande Southern. A 70-car, 5-section freight train met 2 freight trains and a passenger train at one relatively short siding in the San Juan Mountains, with the siding already half full of parked freight cars when they arrived. The same idea won the night, but with all communications done with whistle signals, lantern signals, and oral briefings beforehand. Railroading has always been about solving complicated problems, whether those problems be moving 1,000,000 tons of material or making the seemingly impossible happen. Railroaders made it happen through determination and ingenuity. In the model world, the challenges may not be quite so heavy, but they often require the same level of mental acuity to figure it out and get the train over the road. For many modelers, that thinking through operations problems is what makes model railroading a great hobby. Stay safe out there.